Okay, welcome in, everyone. It's a Wednesday night at 8 o'clock Eastern Time, and this is Miami Hurricanes Live. And we do it each and every Wednesday night, and we do it best with Cam Underwood from State of the U. Please join him and the rest of the staff there on SB Nation for the very best in Miami football coverage. Cam, how you doing tonight?
I'm good. I'm good. Just hanging out, feel good, feel strong. Ooh, my voice really locked in right there. Been doing a lot more singing recently, so I guess getting back to the old me, vocally at least. So yeah, feel good, sound good. So let's go.
What's the best style of music? The best tunes that you can think of to warm up the pipes?
Anything that isn't too extreme in range, so nothing too high, nothing too low, and something. I like to start with lyrical stuff, so slow, long lines, long, slow notes first, and then speed it up from there. So I don't like going too fast if I'm trying to warm it up. But yeah, just get it going. It's kind of like, when you go work out, you stretch a little bit, get the muscles limber and then let it go. Same thing with the voice. Your voice box, the larynx is actually a muscle. You got muscles there. So yeah, same kind of a thing. Make it work.
We are asked just about every day here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, how can I help? How can I help you build the channel? How can we contribute? This is one way. We've got the super chat. It is on. It is ready to go. This is how you can help us and obviously pay back in regards to what we do here each and every week, each and every day. Also, like, comment, share the videos, and subscribe. All right. It's Miami, it's Virginia Tech. It at one point was something a bit special, not necessarily a rivalry in the true definition of the term in sports lore, like a game against the Florida State and some of the great rivalries across the country, but because just of the magnitude of the programs, Miami in particular, but Virginia Tech as well, playing extremely well, being top 10 programs at one point together and meeting for championships in the Big East with those kind of stakes on the line. Is there any kind of cachet to this game anymore, Cam?
Not right now, honestly. Virginia Tech is reeling. They just got blown out by Duke on last Friday night. Miami obviously is only 2-2, didn't look good. The last time out, I lost the first 2 games of the year. So 3 of the 4 didn't, look the way that you want them to look, either from a results or a process standpoint. So yeah, right now, no, this is not Miami Virginia Tech from 2001 when Mike Vick was there, when the Canes were challenging for and winning championships. This is not that. You have a Miami team that's really trying to find its identity and settle itself. 5 straight weeks or 6 straight weeks with the game now after our second bye week of the year. Second bye week because we had week 1 off after playing week 0. So Miami has 3 bye weeks. Most teams have 2 because the way the calendar falls, there's an extra Saturday in the schedule this calendar year. So Miami, gets an extra bye week. But yeah, we're digging into the meat of the schedule. So for both sides of this game, both sides of this matchup, you really have to look interior, not exterior. You're not going to. This is not, in 2017, the last time these teams played down here, that was in conversation for being a game day game. It was the 8 p.m. ABC game either way. And that was the prelude the week before Miami beat down Notre Dame 41-8, a game which I like to recall anytime I have the opportunity, so you're welcome. But it had cachet then. It does not really now. That doesn't mean, that doesn't really mean anything, though. And like I was saying, the teams have to look inside themselves. The challenge is to be your own best self. Perfection and nothing less is the goal. Now, in whatever industry you're in, sometimes you will fall short of that, but the goal has to be perfection. And for Miami, or, aspiring towards that. And Miami has not been there at all. And Virginia Tech, obviously, like I said, they've been reeling. It would not surprise me, however, because Miami is not necessarily a dominating team, although they have dominating levels of talent compared to their opponents, if this game was closer than it's supposed to be. But yeah, really, you got to look in the mirror and you got to look at just be in tune with your star player and say, hey, I'm going to give 100%. Every single snap, period. I'm going to know my alignment, assignment, technique, and I'm going to execute that, period. And I'm going to trust in the scheme. I'm going to trust that the other 10 guys are going to do what they need to do, be where they need to be, and really play to the level that, the Miami Hurricanes greatly aspire to be. But You know, and look, Virginia Tech, they know that they got smacked last week. It was their worst home loss in, I don't even remember when, 80s or something, 60s. It was their worst home loss overall, not even just conference loss. Their worst home loss in Lane Stadium in years. One of the worst losses at Lane Stadium, if not the worst loss at Lane Stadium in my lifetime of all the games that Virginia Tech has played. That's a team against the wall, with their back up against the wall. That's a dangerous animal because they have nothing else to lose because they just got embarrassed. You know what I mean? So, yeah, there's not really people around the country are not going to talk about this game, but both staffs, both rosters, you got to approach this game like it could be your last. And hey, we've seen guys have career-ending injuries in games. Malik Young, Amon Richards. They get an injury in a game, and you think, oh, they're going to bounce back. Those guys have never played again. And you have to approach it with that kind of gravitas because this is not just another game. But if Miami comes out and plays it just like it's just another game, then either this could be a dogfight or a loss. And I don't think that Miami really can suffer with either one of those after Saturday's game.
And when Cam runs down what this game is supposed to be and talks about the magnitude of what Miami's significance as a favorite is, these are the metrics. Vegas says Miami is a 13.5-point favorite. ESPN has them with an 89% chance of winning at home. If you look at the team stats, and this is considering that Miami's played a tougher schedule to date, considering that they played Florida, they played a North Carolina team that took Clemson to a 1-point, 2-point conversion at the end, and have played a couple decent teams, while Virginia Tech has basically played Boston College, Duke. Those are the two best teams they've played. So I would say Miami's schedule's not decidedly enormously better to date, but they've played better opponents overall. And Miami is outscoring Virginia Tech by 8 points per game. They're giving up 12 less points per game. They are outgaining Virginia Tech by some 57 yards per game. They are allowing, let me do the math, 85 yards less per game. Those are significant gaps when you talk about averages per game, because we're not talking about one particular game. Sustaining those kind of average gaps over the course of 4 games for both teams.
Yeah, it's like I said, this game should mean more. This was the goal for this game to mean more in the pursuit of a Coastal Division championship when the ACC recruited both Miami and Virginia Tech from the Big East years ago. And just like Mark said, there is disparity in the metrics right now because of who we've played and who they've played, and also because Miami hasn't played that well, except for the Bethune-Cookman game. There were elements to like from the Florida game. There were elements to like from the North Carolina game, but both of those are losses. So how much of that can you really love? So, yeah, this week, I know that Miami is a 2-touchdown favorite. That opened at like 8.5 and got bet up to 14.5 in hours, or 14 and got bet back down to 13.5. But yeah, everybody wants to say, look, again, Miami is a way better team. Miami's in a way better place. Virginia Tech just got blown out by a Duke team that I believe to be decidedly average because, spoiler alert, I just don't think that Duke is that good pretty much ever. I think that their ceiling is 9-3. Honestly and truly, like they're not a marquee program. Like they can come up, they can bounce up every now and then, but like that's a 9-3 program.
That's the ceiling.
Like,
that is the ceiling.
That's the ceiling.
I believe when they won the Coastal Division Championship in 2013.
Yep.
9-3.
Exactly. So I mean, they're not anybody's juggernaut,
that's
and they blew
scraping the fingertips on the ceiling because they haven't done that again.
Exactly. That's my point. The ceiling is 9-3, which means they're probably a 7-5, 8-4 team pretty much every year, and they blew Virginia Tech out. You cannot go into this game as Miami just expecting for them to roll over. Again, they are a dangerous, endangered animal. Think about if you have a raccoon in your backyard and its tail is stuck underneath the fence and you try to go over there, right? Just to try to help it out and get it so it can keep going about its way. Think about what that raccoon's going to do. You know what I mean? Like that is a dangerous animal in a dangerous situation. And you might not be prepared to handle that as you come outside with your little broom and everything. You've seen the one on the video of the guy on his deck trying to open the little recycling crate to let the raccoon out. And the raccoon came over there like, yo, I'm about to do something. That's where Virginia Tech is right now. They have nothing to lose. They just got embarrassed on national television by a decidedly average Duke team. Now they're coming down to Miami, and everybody's picking Miami to win by 2 touchdowns going away. If Miami sleepwalks, this is going to be bad. And this is what we've seen from Miami over the course of many years, unfortunately. So I believe, again, and I've said this consistently, Miami is by far the more talented team. One of their best players, Trayvon Hill, left out of there, and he's now wearing 94 in the orange and green, baby. That's perfect. That's wonderful. Great, good, and glorious. But unless you play that way, it doesn't matter. And that's where Miami has to step up and not, like Mike Leach said about his team, you cannot read the press clippings. You cannot feel good about yourself. You cannot be fat and lazy, lethargic, and soft. You got to go out there and hit them in the mouth. You got to be the Miami Hurricanes. You have to be the hammer and not the nail. And if you don't come out with that mentality, not only that they can't play with us, but we're going to demonstrate for 60 minutes on every play that they can't play with us, then that's how you get into a 17-12 game against Central Michigan.
You play 8 conference games. You play 6 in the division. You play 2 crossovers. Of course, Florida State is the non-division rival that you play every year, and then it rotates otherwise. So there is a precious amount of Coastal Division games, and you're playing these teams head-to-head. So regardless of the perception of Virginia Tech, and the perception in my mind is pretty close to reality because they have not played well. The team that also lost by 5 touchdowns to Duke could barely beat a Furman by 1 touchdown and barely beat Old Dominion. Were not dominant in that performance and lost to Boston College, who turned around and lost to Kansas by 24 points. But it's still a Coastal Division game. And despite the 1 loss from Miami to North Carolina that set them back to 0-1 in the ACC, it's all right there ahead of them in the next month to really stake their claim, to put it in drive for the stretch drive to win this division, despite the disappointments of, we should have beat Florida. Wow, look at that Central Michigan effort. We blew a 4th and 17, lost to North Carolina. The division's right there for the taking. The teams are all lined up right in front of Miami.
Yes, and it starts Saturday against Virginia Tech, and then next week, Friday, on a short week against Virginia. That's where it has to start.
I can't wait for that game.
I mean, look, me either. We're gonna talk about that, but in the future. But we need to focus on Virginia Tech right now, and that look ahead, let down look ahead sandwich kind of thing. Solid Verbal, they talk about that. If you're overlooking Virginia Tech to try to get ready for Virginia Tech again is going to be that cornered raccoon. They're gonna jump up and get you. So you really got to lend everything to this week. You had a bye week to get ready. You know, you got guys who are going to play their first games. You know, Bubba Bolden is finally eligible, 100% confirmed by athletics, by, you know, the coaching staff and everything. So he's going to, you know, be wearing number 21 in the secondary and on special teams. He's playing his first game in 2 years. You know, he didn't play last year at USC. He went to the JUCO. You know, they made him wait the full year of residence from when he left USC. So that's why he's not playing until October. But, yo, this guy has not played football since December of, 17? Excuse me. Not in a interscholastic game. Yeah, he played some, you know, in scrimmage. But come on, bro. Like, yo, he's wearing the orange and green for the first time. Nesta Silvera, who was potentially in line to be a starter, he had foot surgery. He's been out all year long. Wearing the number 1 jersey in your hearts and in your program. He's coming out. He's finally going to hit the field. Lorenzo Lingard, finally healthy, hopefully going to get some carries and do something. You got guys who have been sitting idly by, watching the rest of the team, the program, play in a mediocre way, dying for a shot out there. You look, if you follow me, I know that you guys follow Amon Richards on Twitter. Everybody talking about, hey, you know, I miss 82, AR82, where you at? Man, I wish I could go out there because he had a medical condition. He had to retire from football. You know what I mean? So he would give anything, almost anything, to be out there for a play. And you guys are out here being lackadaisical and losing to bad teams and competing down with the Central Michigan team that Central Michigan, like I'm a native Detroiter and everything. And like, yeah, I had friends who went to Central. I partied at Central a couple times, but Central Michigan in football? Come on, like, what are we doing? You know, and I don't know who's going to be. I don't know when it's going to be, but somebody has to make a play. Somebody has to make some big plays. It could have been Jeff Thomas on that diving touchdown, potential touchdown in the Florida game. It could have been any number of guys on 4th and 17 or any other play on the North Carolina game. Somebody has to make a play to turn this program back around. And it seems like I'm overstating things, but I'm not. Honestly and truly, somebody has to make a play. Somebody has to do, that Najee Harris touchdown from a couple weeks ago. That was one of the best plays I've ever seen. We haven't had anything similar to that. We haven't had any, because nobody on Miami's roster even comes close to the end zone on that play because they don't make that play, even with similar athletic traits. Somebody has to step up. We got to make plays. We got to step into our destiny and play to the level of talent we have. Please, for me, I hope. Or, we'll be back here next week talking about, well, Cam, what happened against Virginia Tech? And, Virginia's coming in and that's what it's going to be, unless somebody makes a play, and then somebody else makes a play, and somebody else makes a play, and you put a lot of plays together, and you play a game.
All right, folks, listen up. Let's put the value of the podcast, the video, whatever you want to call it, the live stream in perspective here. Cam's got a full-time job. He runs a major website, the SB Nation platform for Miami State of the U. He has a zillion other things going on. I have a fairly decent job where I work for a television network. I come here, I run this channel. I have other obligations as well, family and otherwise. Cam devotes his time for an hour a week to bring Miami football knowledge to you. If he came on, even though he did his best and did a horrible job, that would be one thing we would say, pat on the back, thanks for your time, but he brings it every week. So please like, share, comment, and subscribe, but also understand that the Super Chat is on. And when 14,000 subscribers and the thousands and thousands that watch the videos each and every week pull together your contributions, it's nothing out of your pocket. It's virtually nothing, but when it adds up, it repays value for value. All right, JT Sounds here asking some remarkable recruiting questions that we can always count on. JT Sounds. Hey, Cam, is Damon Hill a real take for us at cornerback? And who else is on our board?
Well, JT Sounds, first of all, great question. Thank you very much. I did just recently write the class breakdown for September that published last week on the 24th. That was before Damon Hill took an unofficial visit for the Central Michigan game or around then or something like that. I don't know that he's a take right now at cornerback, especially with everybody that we have committed. So if I scroll back up here and I look at the class breakdown, we have Justin Hodges and Marcus Clark are two of the 6 defensive back commits, and those guys are slated to play corner in college. Darren Branch and Keyshawn Washington are probably going to be strikers. Jaden Francois looks like, 5 defensive. Oh, yeah, Jaden Francois, and then Brian Balaam, who committed recently from Miramar. He's going to play safety. So, I do think that Miami is looking at other corners in this class. I know that Brian George, a 4-star JUCO kid who's originally from Belgrade, he's on the list. Lakeland has a couple of guys, Finley Graham at Lakeland Senior and Kendall Dennis at Lakeland Kathleen, but I think that they're probably going to go elsewhere. Plus the fact Miami doesn't really recruit Polk County well. In general. And then Dietrich Stanley from Central, I don't think that he's a real option just because we have too many small corners already. I would say Javante Royal from St. Thomas Aquinas. He's a guy who's committed to Pitt, who's like 6'2". He plays corner. He's a guy that I would like to see Miami maybe make a run at. Hey, my shirt popping tonight. Got that stand with the old school Nike joint. Yeet, turn up. Yeah, so sorry, Javante Royal, he's a guy that I think that Miami should look at. There's probably a couple guys, maybe some flip candidates out there late or some late bloomers. But yeah, as it stands right now, I don't think that Damon Hill is a take, but I think that he's somewhere on the radar, as in we brought him in for an unofficial. We're going to talk to him and recruit him. We'll see how things shake out because again, we already have 2 guys committed who are scheduled to play corner, and then we'll see, how the rest of the things go. And then again, don't forget or don't discount the transfer portal. because you don't have to get all of your additions to the roster from the recruiting class. And we saw that last year. Now you would like to have obviously a high number of them from the recruiting class because you can develop them in your system and things like that. So, we'll see. But yeah, Damon Hill on the radar, but not necessarily like an imminent take right now.
Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football with Miami Talk, courtesy Cam Underwood from State of the U. Please join him and the rest of the staff over on SB Nation. Somebody commented in the live chat to remind me that we will have some post-game conversation on the big games on my main channel, but each and every week, the Wholesome One here on YouTube will supply us with a post-game report on Miami football over on our Miami channel. Ryan Willis, a pretty accomplished quarterback, had a nice season for Virginia Tech last year. 8 touchdowns, 5 picks this year, 61% completion percentage. Their leading rusher from last year, Deshaun McLeese, is back, but only averaging 3.8 yards per carry in college football. That's pretty abysmal, folks. It's 5.5, 6 yards per carry. If you look at some of the not even elite backs, just capable running backs and teams in college football. So Virginia Tech issues running the football. They have yet to reach the end zone by their top back. You remember any of these Florida kids that ran off to Virginia Tech? Anybody in particular that you're aware of, Cam?
Absolutely. Their number 2 running back who should be starting is Keyshawn King from Oakleaf. He went to the same high school as Shaq Quarterman went to. He's a freshman up there now. I think he might be a redshirt freshman. He's a guy that Miami had initial contact with in the recruiting class a couple of years ago. It was either the 18 or 19 class. I forget which one. But yeah, he's from the Jacksonville area, and he's averaging 5.6 yards a carry on 34 carries right there. So if you're looking for, but only 8.5 carries a game, but he's, almost as productive as the number 1 back McLeese from his, number 2 role. So if there's a guy, you definitely want to look at Keyshawn King for being the guy from Florida on their roster. There are another couple guys. I don't remember them off the top of my head. But I definitely remember Keyshawn King because I know that I wrote that, we might want to go after him because he was 2 years after 2 years. Yeah, I think he was 2 years after Shaq. So he redshirted last year as a redshirt freshman now, I want to say, or whatever. But yeah, that's a guy. And, he already has almost 200 yards rushing and is averaging almost 6 yards a pop. So that's a guy from Florida who's obviously impacting, being a very positive impact for them in the run game, which, like you said, is struggling, but not necessarily with him when especially, didn't he have a 100-yard game? Yeah, he had 100 yards against Furman, 12 for 119. So 9.92. But then again, in all the other games, 3.3, 3.8, 2.6. So maybe his stats were buoyed a little bit by, a nice big day against some bad competition. Either way, Keyshawn King, running back, is a guy who Miami at least had initial contact with on the recruiting trail who ended up at Virginia Tech.
This is what we do. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, talking up the Canes each and every week with Cam Underwood from State of the U, 8 o'clock Eastern time every Wednesday night. We'll set up Cam for the next question. Matt Cruz thinks you're closer than others do. Miami 2 tackles away, meaning left and right, not just 2 tackles, actually bringing a guy to the ground. 2 tackles along the offensive line and a kicker away from seriously competing. Cam.
Hey, look, it could be either one, matter of fact. Because if you have a tackle in that Florida game, on the 66-yarder, if we call it that play, there was a play in the North Carolina game where if you have a tackle, he doesn't score or break loose. I mean, you really could talk about that in either guys, whether that is roster-based offensive tackles or getting somebody on the ground for a specific play. I mean, from a talent standpoint, I think I agree. I think that, Bubba Baxa has the talent. I just don't know what the disconnect is between the performance for him. But he definitely has the talent. He has a strong leg. I've seen him hit from 60 in warmups in the stadium. Offensive tackle-wise, the staff took the bye week to reevaluate the offensive line. They shuffled some guys around, but they said, they're going to stick with the same 5 up front. So we'll see what happens with that. You bring in a Jalen Rivers next year from Oakleaf. high school. Him and Chance Williams, who plays defensive end, but you bring in Rivers, who's a 4-star. You know, he plays O-tackle. Chris Washington from Nashville. You know, maybe get another couple guys there and try to see, you know, if you can develop some of the guys on the roster. So, you know, there hopefully should be reinforcements coming, but it's still, I think, a lot of this mentality that Manny Diaz was talking about, you know, just getting that woe is me, that, oh, here we go again kind of thing going, or getting that out, you know, not accepting that and just killing that mindset. And that's tough. You know, I wrote about that when Miami was mired in the losing streak to Florida State and said, look, you got to beat them twice. You got to beat them on the field, and you got to beat the idea out of them that they can come back and win this game, because they've done it in any circumstance for many years. It's the same thing with this team. You have to win the mind and the game. So you're battling two battles concurrently. So we'll see what happens. But, you know, I see the Clemson fan who's in the chat talking about, you know, Miami is going to, you know, destroy their defense, is going to wreck Virginia Tech, and Miami is going to cover. From your lips to God's ears. You know, I really hope and desire that to be the case. I have not seen anything to make me think that that's going to be the case, even including that blowout loss by 5 touchdowns that they had to Duke last week, Virginia Tech, that is. It's going to take Miami stepping up and playing that way, and I haven't seen that yet.
So look at the 2 games that Virginia Tech played against ACC and Power 5 competition. So throw out the Old Dominion win. And again, we're talking Old Dominion, who they lost to last year by 2 touchdowns, beat them by 2 touchdowns, beat Furman, but only scored 24 points. Gave up 35 to a pretty marginal Boston College offense, gave up 45 to Duke. The Canes have scored 20 and 20 against their 2 Power 5 opponents, Florida and North Carolina. Correct? No, scored 28-25 against North Carolina. So in the low 20s against the 2 opponents, maybe they get healthy on that defense, Cam.
Maybe. I would like that. You know, Clemson alum 98 in here says, you know, Miami 27, Virginia Tech 3, chalk it up. Hey, like I said, I would appreciate that. I would love that if that were to happen. I just don't see it yet, you know, and even with the talent that Miami has, you know, you take a step back at wide receiver, losing Amon Richards, losing Lawrence Cager, who's balling at Georgia, by the way, you know, those kind of guys, just not making plays like that on the outside. Jaron Williams not necessarily taking and hitting the shots down the field and things like that, even though I did see the stats that, like, he's only like 1% or 1.5% lower on his downfield throws of more than 20 yards. But, I mean, you got to hit them too, you know what I mean? Or as opposed to other top quarterbacks, the frequency with which they throw the ball deep. But, you know, it's a lot of dink and dunk right now. It reminds me of what Matthew Stafford was doing for years in Detroit, because I'm a Lions fan, leave me alone. But you get rid of some of those guys with that mentality and like skill set where they're supposed to be close in line, and he's chucking the ball down the field a little bit more. Now, I'm not saying that Jaron Williams is Matthew Stafford. I don't think that he has that kind of arm or anything. However, the engagement of the offense, the distribution of the passes is different. You know, you're going down the field. And look, I know that a lot of times you're throwing to the tight ends up the seam and everything, and those are your longer throws. I need wide receivers, man. Was, you know, like Jeff Thomas, you know, Mark Pope, Mike Hardley, you know, he broke out for a touchdown, but that was a now route. That was a immediate at the line screen. You know, that was a 12-yard throw to the sideline, and he broke loose for 40. So, yeah, you know, I don't know, man. I don't know. I entered this year maybe a little bit optimistic and hopeful, but now I'm once bitten, twice shy. So show and prove before I believe it.
According to the 247 composite, Jake Garcia is the 3rd-rated pro-style quarterback in the country out of Harbor City, California. 2nd-rated prospect out of California. We know that Florida, California, and Texas produce 40% of the top 300 recruits in the country. He is top shelf. Your hopes of prying him away from the West Coast, Cam?
Very low, to be honest. The question from Carol City Kane is, you know, is there any update on Garcia visiting this week after the USC commit, because he was scheduled to take an unofficial visit, him and his father, down to Miami this week. But then again, that was a couple weeks ago before he committed to USC. So now the thing that USC does, and they do it almost better than everybody, is they attack the local kids and they get them in early, especially the premier kids. You know, if you're a 5-star quarterback in modern day, you're going to USC. Matt Leinart, Matt Barkley, the JT Daniels kid, any of those guys. I mean, they do that. And so what they do is the paradigm for them, especially a quarterback, and this is demonstrated over time, you can go back and look it up, is you get the kid committed as a high school junior, and then you connect him all the way through to whenever he signs as a senior, whether that's early, whether that's JT Daniels, and he enrolls a year early because that kid, he skipped his senior year of high school to be at USC last year, all things like that. But anyway, you lock them in and then you try to lock them down across. Now, the thing about that is they did not complete the task with Bryce Young, who's a local star, 5-star quarterback. He was committed to USC. He flips to Alabama. As soon as that happened, I started looking around and say, okay, who are they going to go after in the 2021 class? Because they're probably going to try to get somebody late in 2020, this current recruiting class. And it ended up being Jake Garcia. So that was the background on the interaction. I don't know if he's going to come on down. I haven't seen or heard anything about that. If he's going to take a visit to Miami this week, I would expect him probably not to take that visit to Miami this week. And, you know, I would expect the Canes to look elsewhere at quarterback in 2021. Or I think that there's two paths right now, especially concerning Jake Garcia. One is to just, you know, say, hey, I understand you're from Southern California. You want to be the man at USC, fight on, go do the thing, all the best, and let it go. Or you play the long game where your goal is not today. Your goal is signing day next year, early or late, whatever. You know what I mean? So I think that there's that. But, I mean, my expectations are not high, especially if Tyler Van Dyke comes in, our 4-star commit at quarterback this year. If he comes in and looks halfway decent, even on scout team, you're probably going to scare away top-end 2021 kids for that. So, you know, we'll see what happens.
All right, Cam. Ian McAllister on the line with more recruiting talk, asking, do you think we land at James Williams, a 2021 safety?
James Williams is a top 5 player in America for next cycle. He's gigantic. He's a legitimate 6'5", 200 and, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 pounds at safety. People have long talked about him potentially moving to linebacker, but he has a defensive back body. Like he's a DB. So he's going to stick at safety. But, I mean, when you have a guy of that size and athletic ability, I mean, he's a freak. He just is. He was committed to Miami for a good long time when he was at Monsignor Pace before he transferred over to Western, I believe is where he is now. No, I don't think that we're going to get him. I hope to be wrong. But if you look at the last few years, you know, the top guys, it's Georgia, Alabama, Clemson, and, you know, maybe Ohio State. Well, yeah, definitely. So those are the 4 places where the top end guys are going. Those 5 stars, you know, the elite of the elite from South Florida. That's where they're going. They're going to those 4 schools pretty much invariably. You know, the percentage in that group of 4 is always shifting, with Clemson taking a little bit of a lead now. But if it's not Georgia, Alabama, Clemson, or Ohio State, no, I don't think that's going to happen. And I hope that Miami proves me wrong. But as I sit here now, like, there's just too much evidence. There's too long a trend, a track record of Miami missing on those kind of guys. I mean, when you have a top 5, top 3 dude, again, at 15, maybe 16 years old, because I think that James Williams is young for his grade also, if I remember correctly. But, yeah, he's a high school junior at 16 years old is what I want to say. And he's 6'5", 215 and runs and moves like a kid who's 5'10", 180 maybe. Like, they don't make many of those guys. You know what I mean? They don't make dudes like Marcus Tate, who's 6'5", 280, but looks like he's Marcus Tate is not the same, but he's almost built like Aaron Donald, where he just doesn't look like he's as heavy as he is. He looks way more athletic than that. And as a 5-star offensive tackle prospect, and where's he going? Clemson. So until I see James Williams sign and end up on campus in Coral Gables after signing, as I say here now, no, I don't believe that we're going to get him, just because Miami is not closed on those caliber of players in long time. Long time.
Folks, we appreciate everybody who pays back value for value in whatever form you do that. Like the videos, leave the comments, subscribe to the channel, and obviously share the videos out there in social media. So you've got social media influence that we don't have. So you've got a sphere of influence out there. Please share the videos out there on social media. And of course, join the super chat and make your contributions here to Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, and Cam's appearance here every Wednesday night. Canes bot. Hit the like button. Key. Do that. And then listen to Cam talk about Navon Donaldson's play looking a bit sloppy, according to Canes bot.
Maybe a little bit. I think that like physically he's still too heavy and needs to cut a little bit more weight. But, you know, for a time there, you know, the left side was opening a lot of the holes for, you know, the big runs and things like that and doing pretty well in pass protection. I do not think that he needs to be benched. I think that he is our most talented offensive lineman. I think he just needs to step up just like everybody else. So, I mean, yes, you can single out Navon Donaldson, but I mean, come on, especially on the offensive line. Tell me a player who hasn't looked sloppy. You know what I mean? So you would hope and expect more from him, especially having been a freshman All-American, having been honorable mention All-ACC before. But yeah, he just needs to step up.
So much expected out of the linebackers, and I see a few comments about the linebacker play. Has it underachieved overall? I know we've zeroed in on Shaq Quarterman because of a couple complaints a few weeks ago, but overall, are you disappointed with the linebacking play?
I think it started off very poor in the Florida game. That was one of the worst games that those guys played, period. Romeo Finley's been the most consistent of the guys at the second level, but Shaq Quarterman and Michael Pinckney had absolute nightmares of games against Florida. It was bad. It was real bad. I mean, it was terrible, honestly. Like I said, it was probably their worst game that they played in 4 years here. Since then, they've been pretty solid. You know, I think those guys are making plays. You know, they're stepping up. I'm not going to look up the stats and everything, but, you know, they're definitely impacting the scorebook, you know, with tackles and pressures, tackles for losses and sacks. So, you know, I do think that they started off slowly, excuse me. But they've definitely started to rebound back and look like themselves. So overall, I would say maybe, you know, a little bit below my expectations just because the expectations are so high, but, you know, average to above average overall for linebackers.
I'm going to tackle this one, and then Cam can chime in regards to Seth. Seth's looking ahead. He's looking past Virginia Tech, looking to that Virginia game, which apparently ESPN has stated Miami is favored against Virginia. So Vegas and others that really break down the metrics, they look at things like, I know yards per play is a tremendous indicator of how successful teams are. They don't look at record. Look at the performance on the field, and it's difficult to separate Virginia and Miami overall. I know that sounds ridiculous. Virginia barely lost to Notre Dame. They actually played a decent game against Notre Dame in South Bend. They had a couple of strip sacks that went the wrong way. One went all the way for a touchdown. One went inside the 5-yard line that really turned that game. So they played a decent effort, although they lost by 15 points at Notre Dame. They beat Pitt in a game that was extremely close at halftime. They took charge in the second half. Then they really haven't played anybody else of note, while Miami plays a Florida team. I know that they've looked a little bit sloppy, don't necessarily look like a top 10 team, but they've got top 10 to 15 type talent, and that game was a toss-up. It was a complete toss-up. Somebody had to lose the game. Somebody had to win the game. But if you evaluate performance, it was a toss-up. Evaluate performance against North Carolina, a team that's going to be up and down. I'm not selling North Carolina as a great team, but they just took the defending national champions, a team that anybody in this live chat 4 or 5 days ago would have said is the best or one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the country, took them to a 2-point conversion. Miami had to play at their place in Chapel Hill at the same stadium and basically played the same game Clemson did. So there's a lot of metrics, forget the record, just the overall record, that make Virginia and Miami very comparable in their play to date. And Vegas also weighing what's expected of these teams. And Miami, again, I'm not predicting a win necessarily against Virginia. We'll have to wait till we get to that game. And my prediction is not necessarily meaningful. But Miami has a better roster than Virginia. That doesn't mean that they will have the better team in the final result, but they have a better roster with more recruited, better recruited talent.
And Virginia has been mass exodus U. They've had the most transfers in the country over the last 2 years as well. So even guys that they have recruited have left. Again, Trayvon Hill was #1 in the country in havoc rate, or tackles for loss, creating pressures and things like that. When he left Virginia Tech last year, and he came to Miami, you know what I mean?
I think this gentleman's talking about Virginia.
Oh yeah, well,
focus down Virginia Tech.
Oh,
He's
sorry.
talking about Virginia the next week.
We'll get there. But I mean, if you look, there's no comparison of talent. But they do have some South Florida guys on that roster as well. But we'll see. But yeah, this team is not to the point where you can overlook anybody.
And Miami's been a much different team, as are most teams across the country, at home versus on the road. And that game's at home in 2 weeks against Virginia. So that's substantial in Vegas and ESPN and all their power indexes and formulas and determining who should be favored in games. So understand that.
Yeah, I mean, this is true. And, they're talking about, I saw there was a piece in The Athletic talking about if Hard Rock Stadium is like venomous, loud or something like that and everything. Like, yeah, that's great, but you got to be like that. Obviously, the fans need to show up and have that. But, it's hard to be enthusiastic when the product on the field is less, substandard. People go and they cheer loud. I'm probably going to try to get to a game here soon and do my best to cheer loudly as well. But, even with the atmosphere being palpable, if the performance is not to that standard, it doesn't really matter.
So you talked about it last week, I believe it might have been the week before, in regards to Jarren Williams' play, that it's been too conservative, that he's got to cut it loose. And again, I pointed to the 35 points given up to Boston College that doesn't have nearly the receiving threats that Miami or Duke putting up 45 last week, that this would just seem to, if the offensive line can do its job and give them just enough time to find those creases in the secondary, there should be some plays out there to be made.
Yeah, and Jarren loves throwing the intermediate passes. The short balls, the now screens, the bubble screens, the slants and things like that, those are great. And Jarren Williams, he'll fit in, the square in, the 15-yard square in is pretty much always open if you can block to give time for the receiver to get to 15 and then break it off. But Jarren loves that route to KJ Osborne, especially. He's thrown a couple to Jeff Thomas, but mainly to KJ. Bro, the 15-yard square in, money. But yeah, when you have those vertical shots, you got to hit them. You cannot underthrow Jeff Thomas when he's open by 15 yards, or Mark Pope on that play action pass. When you have a chance to air it out, throw that bit, let it go. Randy Moss once famously said I think it was on Monday Night Football, he said it to Dante Culpeppers, "Hey, chuck it up there, dog. Chuck it up there. Let them go get it." This is what these guys are there for, especially those speed burners. Mark Pope, Jeff Thomas, chuck it. These guys, look, especially if you get a half a step, if they're even, they're leaving. You know what I mean? But you got to hit those. Shane Meehan is a Virginia Tech fan, and I see you. And I saw that score prediction. I'm going to finish this point. I'm going to come back to that. Yeah, thank you, Mark. But if you have the opportunity for the vertical shots, sometimes you have to take calculated risks. You got to throw that ball. And I know that, again, we've talked about the fact that Jarren is not throwing an interception, and that's kind of become this entity of its own, this, passes since he's thrown an interception, which is never in his career, although he threw a ball that could have been intercepted, or a few passes that could have been intercepted before. Even last year when he redshirted with that, one game he played in, again, he didn't see a linebacker. He's had a couple other balls tipped. But, yeah, you got to take some chances and some chances down the field because, yeah, if you're not, then you're compressing the field vertically. And then, obviously the safeties, they're going to put their heels at 12 and they're all going to come downhill towards everything you're doing because there's no threat to go behind them. Switching my focus, Seth says it's going to be 21-14 Virginia Tech. While I'm not going to discount that as being possible, because like I said, we're not anywhere where you can 100% guarantee that Miami's going to win. You don't believe that, Seth. You don't. You just wanted to put that up there to get my reaction. So, hey, this is the attention that you wanted. You don't believe that. You really honestly don't. Not for anything. Not based upon what you've seen, maybe on what you hope. But, the Virginia Tech fan base, and obviously, I know some of those guys and everything because, like, it's in the ACC. Mike McDaniel from the Basketball Conference podcast, good buddy of mine, Virginia Tech alum, writes for another Virginia Tech website. And most of the fan base is talking about what can they do to fire Justin Fuente. How can they raise the money for his $15 million buyout plus this, that, the third. Da, 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 da. So y'all talking about we going to fire Fuente right now after getting embarrassed at home and turn around and say, oh, yeah, but we're going to beat Miami. A, you don't believe that. B, you hope that. And 3, I don't know, I switched those up. This is the state of where Miami is, where a team in this kind of disarray can think realistically that they're going to come into Hard Rock Stadium down here in South Florida and win a game against Miami with a program and a team that looks the way that they've looked over the course of the year, like Mark said, against Old Dominion and Furman and these teams from 1AA and things like that. And they're playing tight games with them and getting blown out by Duke. But, we're playing Miami this week? Light work. How's that supposed to make you feel? Like, come on, bro.
N'Kosi Perry was the quarterback of choice based on your evaluation, having not seen Jarren Williams on the field with the bullets firing once that decision was made. And it seemed to be very decisive by Manny Diaz in that he evaluated Jarren Williams, obviously, to be the best quarterback. Now that he's out there are mixed reviews on his play. I saw the Florida game. I saw the North Carolina game in condensed fashion. I thought he acquitted himself fairly well. I'm still understanding and keeping in perspective that he stepped on the field for the first time as the starter against Florida, which is a tough position to be in against that good of a defense in start number 1. But I know that, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you had stated or somebody had stated that I respect that N'Kosi Perry has the better arm, but Jarren Williams has a certain level of touch and anticipation and has arm talent that maybe is a little bit better than Perry.
Yeah, that was me. Kosi has a cannon. Jarren has a good arm and some touch. I think that the question, being, can Jarren throw accurate balls past 20 yards? We need to see it in practice. And I mean, okay, not in practice as in during a practice session. I mean, in a game setting in practice, not theory. You know what I mean? Because a practice on the green tree. Sorry, phone being stupid again. Apologize. This time every week. Sorry. Anyways, a practice on the green tree practice fields is fine. That's theory, though, to me. I need to see it during a game. Him being accurate down the field. But even against Bethune, you saw it when N'Kosi came in. Man, just the ball, just laser beams. I mean, he has. I don't see how after that you can really have any kind of debate about who has the stronger arm. But being the better quarterback, obviously with the operations, of getting the team to the line, running the offense, all of those kind of things, being more accurate and protecting the ball, has to go to Jarren. But I mean, there's still areas to his game that need to improve, and hitting vertical throws needs to be one of them. And look, Sam Howell was in high school last year, and they turned some of those one-on-ones outside into 7-on-7, where there's no line, you get blocking enough. You don't concern yourself with anything. He wasn't even taking a drop from a shotgun. He was just looking and throwing one-on-ones. Just, those are recruiting camp routes. You know what I mean? Like just one-on-one to the outside, beat your man, call the play, and then you're going to throw it. Regardless of, I'm not even looking anywhere else. We're making this a one-on-one from a camp setting. And he hit those. I hate to compare our players to other teams' players, but if you get a true freshman at North Carolina to be able to hit some of those throws, why can we not have a redshirt freshman at Miami hit some also?
Miami's got an 89% chance of winning this week at home against Virginia Tech, according to ESPN. 14-point favorite, 13.5, something in that range against the Hokies, key Coastal Division game. So let's not make the assumption that they win, but let's say that they do win, and we're looking at Virginia at Miami this time next week. and our Miami Hurricane show, 212 on the line. I would think that we could just blow it out. So bring your family, your friends, and your social media acquaintances here at 8 o'clock Eastern time next Wednesday. Matt Cruz asking about the spread coast, really confusing defenses. Does it?
Anything can confuse anybody, especially if you do it well. You know, in the opener against Florida, that first drive was poetry in motion.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was. You know, you had varied engagements, you had varied alignment. You know, personnel groups. You know, you line up in 3 receiver, 1 back, 1 tight, and you motion the receiver across the formation, and then you, instead of going, you turn that motion into a shift and shift everybody to empty 5 wide. And you hit the screen to Brevin Jordan, who almost scored up that sideline if he doesn't get, tripped up. I don't know where that's been. You know what I mean? And it's hard to do those kind of exotic things if you can't execute the staples, the, inside run on 2nd and 3 to get a first down, and that's a tackle for loss. Now it's 3rd and 6, things like that. So there are times where it is confusing, but other times when we're just better than you. You can have a good defense called up. You can play good coverage, but the pass is in a perfect spot and the guy just fights you for the ball. And I need more of that. It is nice to have guys schemed high school open, as people call them, because usually for a quarterback to throw the ball in high school, they need to be clean, nobody else in their vision. Oh, he's open. Now I throw it. If you can scheme guys high school open, that's awesome. But you're going to need to make throw guys open. Where they're covered or they're even with their defender, but you put the ball in the stream of their route where they can only get it, or you throw a back shoulder fade or everything like that. You need to see some of that. And to the comment that was just on the screen, everybody's talking about the Central Michigan game because that was the last game we played, bro. We had an off week. We haven't played in however many days. That's the game that we can talk about. Or you can go back further. Talk about Bethune, talk about North Carolina, or talk about the Florida game. But you're talking about the most recent thing that you've seen because that is your most recent data point and evidence for what this team does or can do. It's just logic. Come on, bro.
We love talking Miami football with Cam Underwood from State of the U, who's been coming on the channel here, bringing us just a top-level insight for 5 or 6 years, something in that range. I went back several months ago and dug up the first video. It's quite amusing with Cam and I. It was like a bowl preview against Louisville and Teddy Bridgewater, I believe.
Oh, God. Oh,
I believe that was number 1.
Oh, wow. I wish that there was a different number 1 because they put it in our life.
I think that was the one.
Yikes. Oh, I remember that.
Yeah.
I rode up with my buddy Shan Patrick, and we did the 1-day trip. So we drove up to South Florida, went to the game, tailgated with some people, met some people up there, went and hung out and everything, all hyped up. And then we started off with a safety and then a field goal or a touchdown. And then it went really downhill from there. I mean, it was to the point where they brought Teddy Bridgewater out for in the fourth quarter. They were already up by 1 million and went in formation and did all the motions and everything just to call a timeout for him to walk off the field for the last time as a Cardinal. That was, bad memories.
There it is, folks. Again, a nice turnout tonight. But again, as we get to the heart of the season and considering the couple games coming up, I know Virginia Tech's down, but it's still Coastal Division. It's Virginia Tech. It's at Hard Rock. It's a must-win for Miami to get themselves in position to take on Virginia with possibly the division lead on the line the next week. Let's get some folks in here. Please let people know every Wednesday night, 8 o'clock Eastern time with Cam Underwood from State of the U. Anything beyond the normal pregame hype and previews this week?
No, it's a little bit of a transition time. Lost one of our best contributors to another full-time job in the media industry, so he has a non-compete, so he couldn't write for us anymore. So that's taken a little bit of getting used to and everything. So no, we're just doing that and trying to fight our way through. But always bringing you guys the best Miami Hurricanes commentary and analysis, and also trying to set up things for basketball season because basketball is only about a month away. So hopefully the Miami Hurricanes basketball team pushes towards 20 wins in the NCAA tournament. So we're trying to get stuff set for you on that as well. And I know that we talk football exclusively here, but we also try to be 360 with our coverage there as well. So yeah, we're working on all kinds of those things and got another couple things that are percolating in the lab, but I'm not ready to talk about those yet.
All right, let's keep it locked in here. Please, before you leave us, hit the like button. And again, the super chat is available for you to help us build the channel and support what we do right here every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock Eastern time. Cam, enjoy the game. Have a great time. We will see you back here, hopefully, Lord willing, next Wednesday night.
Lord willing, with a win to our record and then pushing towards Virginia. So, yeah, appreciate it. Thank you guys for watching. Keep reading. We're at stateoftheu.com on all of our social media. That's Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at The State of the U. And my personal Twitter is at Underwood Sports, so you can continue the conversation there. And we'll see you guys next week.
If anyone contributed here, please, I will catch up in regards to recognition for you. And I am going to be shooting some videos here in the next few days, or I'm not going to hold myself to that. At some point this season, I'm going to give recognition and credit where it's due in regards to those people subscribing, liking the videos, commenting, contributing to the channel, and doing all those good things to help us build what we do here each and every day. 120 to 150 videos posted here. And no, I don't do this full time. At Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. We'll be right back with Ohio State Buckeyes live. If you love college football, just keep it right here. Hang tight. We'll be back in 2 minutes talking Buckeyes. And regardless of who you root for, jump in the live chat, defend your team, talk about your team, talk it up. Week 6 of college football. We'll be right back.